is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Rob Barretts is my engineer, and Ernie Bowling is an optometrist in Alabama. He's been messing around with creative writing for years, but mostly he's been writing articles about optometry. And then one of the editors found out Ernie was a third-generation coal miner, and next thing you know, Ernie writes a book entitled Coal-Blooded. Talk about writing what you know.
I spent the first 10 years of my life in the coal mines. And he said, man, that'd be a great article. So why don't you write it for our journal? So I did, and they got a really, really good response. And we'll go out and have dinner and drink a little bit, and everybody wants to talk, ask me stories, tell them stories. So, and I do. And so somebody said, man, you really ought to write these down and make a book. And I said, okay. And that's been, like I said, about 10 years ago. So that's why I just kind of piddle with it off and on. And finally, I decided, Alice, it's like I could have went the traditional route. I could have, probably tried to submit query letters here and there. And I thought, I ain't got time for that. I just don't have time for that. Yeah, I didn't feel like I needed somebody to justify, my writing. Oh, yes, it's good enough to publish. Well, no, I'll publish it if I want to. I'm a big man, and I run my own business. So if I want to do something, I'll do it. And so I just decided to, put it out there. And I did a lot of research and let Paige, I looked around and I thought, well, to me, it's one-stop shop, and it's going to cost me a little money, but I got money. What I don't have time. I don't have time sitting around full with all these people trying to, figure things out. And
right.
So that's why I decided to do it. People ask me who know me says that's autobiography. I said, no, it's really not. It's more of a composite of different people that I've known over the time, but it's really a history of a kid who really kind of lost and just kind of, out of high school and not really doing anything and flunked out of college and came back home, and the only thing there was to do in that part of West Virginia was to work in the coal mines. You either worked in the coal mines, or you worked in grocery store stocking the groceries for the coal miners, or you talked to coal miners' kids. And so, he got a job working in the coal mines. That's about it, about him growing up and doing that until, finally decided he wanted to go back to school, because the coal company really paid for a lot of us to go back to school, but they wanted you to study mining engineering, and I did. But, really, the book's really not about that. It's about, he wants to do something for himself, and he does. But then later on, like I said, he works his way up and to be a foreman. And then finally this one accident kills a bunch of his ex-workers, and he really decides that, look, hey, maybe this ain't a good, healthy, long-term future. And so that's what it's about choices that you make in life, or that you don't make, that you get made for you. And then, what it takes to kind of, make those changes at the end.
Is that what happened to you? Is that why you decided to be an optometrist?
I looked around one day, Alice, and I was 28 years old, and I was talking with a buddy of mine who lives up in Huntsville, Alabama. He and I came from West Virginia down to Alabama together, and both went back to school, and he's got a degree in accounting. He works for NASA now, and we were standing around one day before we went underground to work, and I said, hey, what happened to old Joe Blow? So, Joe Blow, he's got black lung, and he's not able to work. And I said, okay. Hey, remember Tim Thompson? He said, yeah. I said, Tim had a rock fall on his back and broke his back. Now he's disabled and he's not able to work. But the biggest thing was we had a buddy get killed in a mine accident. And it's like, okay, this ain't, this is a young man's game. It's not a long-term future for me, I didn't think, so that was the impetus behind it. Just really realized that I enjoyed it. It was fun. And I hope the book conveyed that. It was not, the camaraderie of the workers. That was fun. And I really miss that as an optometrist out here on my own. It's just me and my staff, but I really don't have that interaction like I had when I went to work with a crew of people every day. So my wife and my daughter are my PR team. They're got book signings set up, and they're contacting different people. Of course, we flooded social media with it, trying to do all those things.
Great story, Ernie. From coal to optometry. Thank you. Leslie Simmerall's experience with a spiritual mentor decades ago inspired her to bring her fascination with Christmas and the whole mythology around Santa Claus to life in her book entitled Where Santa Dwelleth Forever After. Now, this sounds like a children's book, but you say it's not.
It's not for children. It's not intended for children, though the title Where Santa Dwelleth Forever After very much sounds like it would be a children's book. It really is for the adult audience, for Christians, for people who are seeking the Word of God. But it's really a story that's intended to comfort people and bring the whole idea of Christmas into a whole new way of looking at Christmas, sort of in a celestial way, if you will.
Well, you say the story tells of a young girl who's escorted by an angel to a heavenly realm of spiritual knowledge, and she learns all of these incredible things.
She learns the truth about who Santa Claus is, and I don't want to give away that part of the story, but it's a very unique concept, a different way to look at Santa Claus. After all, he was, I think, probably intended to bring forward goodwill to all and carry that through the whole Christmas season. I think we kind of feel that during the Christmas season, the generosity of what the human spirit really should be, needs to be. And then she learns spiritual principles, peace, love, and joy, what that really means. Faith, hope, and charity, a real concise, good, solid definition of those things, health, wealth, and happiness. And she has a sacred meeting with Jesus who teaches her these things. And I think I pulled all of those elements together in my novella. It's not a long book. It's 114 pages, so you can get through it pretty quickly. But I've gotten wonderful feedback from people who have read the book, how comforting it is, what an unusual second look at Christmas and how to view it as through a child's eyes, but interpreted as that child grows older and defines and reinterprets it for the reader. I was very fortunate. The company I work for bought 86 books, and they were handed out to employees. So I did a book signing.
That's really nice. Your company must love you.
Well, it's a great company. I mean, they have an attitude of caring. And when I told them that I'd written this book, they were fascinated by it. And we had a Christmas party, and which we do every year. And they set up a table, and it was a wonderful event for me. It really was. It was very uplifting.
That's really great. Yeah, not everybody can say they get that kind of support from the place that they work.
Yes, well, I do. I've had wonderful support. I've worked for the company for about 8.5 years, and it's been a great journey to wind up my career.
So where do you go from here?
I keep writing. I'm going to write a sequel. In fact, I've started writing a sequel to this book. It's going to be a trilogy, and it's going to be Christmas stories and spiritual content for Christians.
Sounds like you have a purpose. Yeah, it really does.
I do. I really do have a purpose. I feel very strongly that I was supposed to write this book and get it out into the public, and I've had wonderful feedback from those who have read it, and touching comments like, I was going through a hard time, and I read your book, and I was comforted by it. Well,
yeah.
Those things mean a lot.
They do, and it also means a lot to work for a company. You say you work for a petroleum company that is as supportive as the one you work for. Thanks, Leslie. J. Howard Brown has written a few magazine articles, but he's been thinking about this book for a long time. He combines two things he's fascinated by, George Washington and time travel, to write Washington's Time Traveler.
Yes, I took fiction and intertwined it in real events over a period of 2 years. It's about a captain, Andrew McKay, and 3 enlisted men who are in a Humvee in Afghanistan in 2015. They hit a roadside device. The 3 enlisted men are thrown from the vehicle, but the captain remains inside. And then the vehicle starts spinning backwards in time. He lands through a violent thunderstorm between the American and British lines as Washington is attempting to retreat out of New York City across the East River in 1776. He then remains with the Army for 2 years.
So he's a time traveler, and he assimilates into this army.
Yes, from 2015.
That must have been very cool for him.
Well, Washington keeps a close eye on him, and there's a lot of interaction with Washington. Washington believes that he is a time traveler. There's just too much evidence to support it. But several times McKay wants to tell Washington how a battle is going to turn out, but Washington always stops him because Washington, although he knows the country exists in 2015, he also knows that the path to 2015 cannot be altered. Otherwise, the revolution might not be won, and it could wind up entirely different. It's a short story, but I think 1 or 2 night read. But I think it's interesting, and everyone that has read it has told me that.
Do your time travels go on?
Well, it does end in the first book, but I am writing a sequel, and all the main characters are back with some others. And the second book that I'm writing will be a good deal longer.
I know Paige does stuff, but are you doing anything on your own?
Oh yes, we signed up for the bookmarks and the sell sheets, and we're distributing them, telling people. We at the local library here, we went in and did a discussion, and so we are definitely pushing it on our end.
Tell me about these sell sheets and what do they give you?
The sell sheets tell about the book and the author, and they give a brief synopsis of what the book is about. And they're very well done. It's an 8 by 10 sheet, and these are extremely helpful in passing them out to people to get them interested in the book. And Page is also put it on many different markets and venues, and it's in paperback and hardcover and e-file. So I think they've done a very good job of pushing the book.
When you did your talk at the library, did people buy it?
Yeah, I had quite a few sales there, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing better than, especially this book. I can just tell that you had a great time writing. It comes through how much you enjoyed writing about this, and time travel seems to me something you've thought about throughout your life, and that's exciting, and other people love that whole fantasy aspect, and there's just nothing than the author standing up and talking about his or her book, reading it and discussing it. I mean, I think that's infectious, and people really enjoy that and appreciate it.
Well, we belong to several coin clubs,
Okay.
and at Christmas time, I donated one to the club to sell. We meet in a school, and once a year we give a donation to the kids at the school. So I gave a book for the auction for the kids, and it brought $60. So I was quite happy with that.
That's great. $60. That's awesome.
Yes.
All right. Well, keep it up.
Okay.
And we're going to keep it up too, right here on the Page Publishing Book Club. But first, we have to take a quick break. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
We are back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Thanks so much for stopping by. A newspaper editor for a dozen years and then a corporate communications manager, Patrick Anderson was determined not to simply restate what the Bible says about the life of Jesus, but to reconceptualize the story in his book entitled Second Born. Patrick.
Okay, well, this is a reimagining of the life of Jesus as he was growing up with his brothers and sisters during his youth and early adulthood, and it makes him a very believable human character, and talks about shows family dynamics and what might have been the case, and how the family quest would be to restore dignity to Israel, which was occupied by the Romans at the time, and how Jesus and his brothers, how each of them grow into their own separate roles to fulfill the family quest. Spoiler alert, he gets crucified at the end, by the way.
No. What made you feel, compelled to re-envision this story?
Well, a lot of people are searching for something, to hold dear in their lives. And instead of, hitting people with theology and all that, I just wanted them to be interested in the man himself. I myself absolutely hated Christianity when I was in my late teens and early 20s. My older brother, my next older brother, was killed in Vietnam. My parents split up. As a young man in my 20s, I was a very angry person, and I rejected all this stuff. And And then, I had my own sort of revelation, and when I became a Christian, I did not want to be one of those people who's out carrying signs, criticizing other people and saying you have to believe what I believe or else you're going to hell. I resisted that kind of evangelicalism, and as a result, I was thinking, if I were to try to share my faith with anybody, I'd try to do it in a way that would be accessible rather than confrontational or judgmental, inviting instead of intimidating.
There you go. Good for you. Probably felt good writing this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been a writer ever since I was a kid. I've always enjoyed the process of writing. I mean, and so, the instant gratification I got from writing was always a motivating factor, and I just enjoyed the process. Several years ago, I decided, I should really try to do an extended piece, and that's how this book came about. For writers, the difficulty about writing a novel is that you don't get the instant gratification that a journalist gets. I mean, as a reporter, I put out a story, I hear from people almost immediately, people calling or writing and saying that either they hate me or they love me or
Right.
something or other. But you know that you had an impact.
Right.
When you're writing a novel, you don't really get to bounce it off of other people so much. You just have to do it for yourself. The book launch party was at my church. My priest, who has read the book, introduced me, and she was actually the one who seemed to be cheerleading the most, which was it's always encouraging.
Starting within your religious community seems like a no-brainer for this one.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, there are 20 or 30 independent bookstores in San Francisco. I've contacted all of them. I have not gone face to face yet, and tried to grab the manager by the lapels and say, "Let me do a signing at your bookstore." But I'll probably get to that within a few weeks.
All right, that's the spirit, Patrick, and just in time for the Lenten season. It's very topical, and Easter too. Nicky Lynn has written the sequel to her first book that unfortunately was published by a company that went out of business, but we are glad we could help you publish Tip Her, She Deserves It, the sequel. Now, this came to you out of nowhere, right, Nicky Lynn?
The first book, I actually had a dream. I was going to receive a prestigious award in writing. I never did any writing before. That was back in 2000. And this voice said, "Tip her, she deserves it." And I woke up immediately. I don't know what it was. It just said, I'm going to do this. And from there on, I put every energy that I could into this. I talked to the teachers I was working with, and one teacher there, I wrote out the first 10 pages like he told me to do. He went over it just like I was one of the kids. I had only one thing correct. That was the title. He gave me one happy face and 20 sad faces. But he wrote down in each sentence what I was doing incorrect. And from that day on, I created this family in my mind. Okay, it's the Ivy Carlton family. Because the first book, I wrote a history about Ivy from the late 1800s. That was my first book, that she had this history of her family with integrity, how they worked hard. They were black people that had to make their way through life and sharecropping. She was the only one that went to college, and she graduated, and she wanted to be a financial advisor in Manhattan, which everybody thought that would not happen. And when she did make it, the struggles were so hard because everyone had told her she could not do it, but she was determined to do it with all the pain that she went through. Then I ended the book, but from some of the readers who had read my book, they began to call and ask her, what is she going to do? She's there now. What is she going to do? When I decided to write another book, I decided I wanted to make a movie. I decided that I wanted to write a script, not knowing anything about that either. So then I went to L.A. I learned how to write this movie script, acquired an agent. Unfortunately, the director, Jack Thompson, died. Okay, then there was the movie. That was it. That was the end of it. Then I decided, well, maybe I'll rewrite it into a manuscript, and that's where I am today.
Okay, and then we find out in this book what happens to her.
Exactly. She ended up getting this position. The man of her life, she lost him. She was just a loser in all of these things, and it was just so heartbreaking on how much Ivy had to go through to gain what she was trying to gain through life. But finally, eventually, it did end up that she got her lover back and she got her position, and now she is okay.
All right, Nicky Lynn, what an odyssey. Thank you. Wayne Nicholson has worked for Walmart for 18 years, and now he is ready to write full time. This is his first book in a series. It's entitled Don't Look Between the Leaves.
Basically, it's a sci-fi novel. It's set upstate New York. Let me tell you, the main villain is a descendant of a very infamous Nazi doctor from Auschwitz, Dr. Mengele, and his illegitimate grandson is running a nuclear plant and wreaking havoc with the local populace because he's experimenting with irradiated DNA.
Okay, let me ask. The story is the threat of nuclear horror. It's about and an old war hero's determination to stop this horror.
Right.
And he leads a charge to stop this menace. And this story goes on through several books.
It's a mixture of sci-fi, history, a little horror, a lot of love and romance in there. You know, it's it'll grab you. It really impressed me because of my first time as an author. It's the first time it got published. I mean, everything was a first to me. It's like I'm still in shock by it. And I'm just really excited because I started when I was 60 years old on my birthday, December 21st. And I did it as kind of a joke to myself because I wanted to do some writing, wanted to give it out to friends to see if they liked it. You know, it's a story that was basically, I took the characteristics of several of my friends and just threw it in the mix there and changed the names and made characters out of them and just decided to see where it was going to go. So I'm really excited. I'm plowing ahead into book 2. With the same excitement that I had with the first one, because I've already written this. Let's see, I had 2, 3, 4, and 5 written within short of my 63rd birthday, and I had just started 6. And after the book came out, I sat there and I was dumbstruck. I said, "Now what do I do?" I said, "Do I continue with my writing, and or do I start the second one?" So after a little bit of deliberation, I said, "You know what? I'm going to shelve the 6th one for now, and I'll go back to number 2, start working on number 2. Or the first day I was on number 2, I got the end of book 6, and I wrote it down, and I put it in the file, put it away, file it away, because 7 is going to be right behind it. So I'm doing very well as far as writing. I don't lack any kind of creativity at all in this project, and I'm going full steam ahead with it, and I'm looking forward to having the same great experience with Paige that I've had in the past. You folks have been tremendous in your help as far as, me getting the book out there.
Well, thanks, Wayne. We try.
You succeeded, let me tell you.
All right. Finally, Michael Gladstein was a frustrated writer. He did everything but write in order to pay his bills, including becoming a co-owner of a tattoo shop and selling animated art. But now he's finally found the time to write his first book. It's called Dialogues with My Dream Girl. And you say it's written with all women in mind.
To be honest, I wanted to make things better for ladies. I felt that there was a lot lost in the world, because romance and love, aren't where they should be. I'm an old-fashioned guy. Basically, I was raised where, hey, respect ladies, like court them and things like that. And they stopped doing that kind of thing. And I think it's a loss to the women because humanity is, in the center of the family is women. They're the closest thing to God, to kids and like that. In my day, mom was the boss, what I mean? I don't think the men, there's something lacking in women where they don't have the love and the romance that they should have. I mean? They end up accepting less than what they deserve, which I think is wrong because that's what built the families when you really think about it, if you had a good mom and good dad.
Right.
It's not a normal book because what it does is I made the characters whoever reads it. you become part of the book when you read it. It doesn't use names, it doesn't use descriptions. It basically is like a flow of consciousness. It's like there's two parts. You could say a dominant or a male, and a passive, a little bit of a female, like that. But it could be any couples. You know what I mean? And it's basically the guy found somebody he really wants to care for and have a relationship with. And it's kind of like a designer romance book, because I designed it from the bottom up, because I believe something, if a lady reads, she knows when something's genuine, in her heart, like that. And I tried to make that genuine for the woman. And also I tried to, teach guys how to be a gentleman and be right by women and stuff like that. So basically the characters are the people that read it. It brings you into the book. It sounds weird, but I tested my book a lot with psychologists and said, I don't know how you did this. It also brings people together, believe it or not, because I tested it with a lot of different people, and I had the same response. Some of them it's almost like it induces endorphins. They can't put it down. I was naturally the male part, but I put on different hats. You know what I mean? It's like Dream Girl. You know what I mean? I kind of just kind of imagined what it would be like to find somebody in a situation. I designed different types of situations. It's addictive a little bit. And basically, I'm not doing any book signings yet or anything like that. I did actually send 2 copies off, one to Oprah Winfrey and one to Ellen DeGeneres. I haven't gotten a comeback yet, but I think I just sent them off as gifts. This kind of is like a dream, the book, because I've been wanting to get where I could have a little bit of a power base where I could just write all the time. But
you're going to have to get in line on that one, Michael. I don't think there is one author that I have interviewed in all of the years that I've done this show that doesn't want the exact same thing, to get to the point where they are financially secure enough to write all the time. But you know what? It takes time, it takes talent, and it definitely takes a break. Definitely. All right, Rob, look at Mr. Clock. We got to get out of here. Thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget, download us anytime you want at 710WOR.com. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. See you next time.